In this episode, we discuss the application of digital twins in industrial process optimization. My guest on this episode is Erik Udstuen. Erik is the CEO and co-founder of TwinThread, the world's first digital twin platform combining industrial data with industrial AI in an integrated development environment for engineers and data scientists alike. Erik started his career as a process engineer in the pulp and paper industry and went on to found multiple successful companies in the industrial software space focused on historians, manufacturing execution systems, and industrial analytics. Now here's my interview with Erik. Erik, thank you for taking the time to join us on the show today. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. So today I would like to talk to you about digital twins for continuous improvement in manufacturing. So maybe to begin, can you describe for us what the challenges are in modern manufacturing that are driving the need for digital twins?
Yeah, I think the challenges are really the same that they've been for a long time, only the importance of solving problems is much greater in today's sort of volatile and constrained, manufacturing supply chains. So the challenges are, keeping quality and reliability, uptime, throughput, flexibility, all the same challenges that manufacturers have been working on for decades, but really it is acute to really have modern solutions in place today to solve those problems in new ways.
Okay, interesting. So now, what would you say are the key functions of digital twins in manufacturing that help address those problems?
Yeah, we see sort of three key areas of which digital twins cut across all three of these. Really starting with the industrial data ops, this is really about collecting the OT data, contextualizing that data, enriching that data, and preparing it for all different types of analysis. So that's sort of the first key function that digital twins cut across and enhance that. The second one is the industrial AI ops. The reason why we want to curate all that data is because we want to apply AI on top of that, and to do that optimization that we talked about to address those challenges is really what is the second piece, and digital twins sort of cut across that as well. And then the third is around enterprise integration. So being able to take data from the plant floor, not only contextualize it, enrich it, and apply AI against it, but to really integrate it in with the workflows of the enterprise. Workflows like planning, production planning, workflows like R&D and quality development, and these things that are happening at the enterprise level need to be integrated in with these plant floor operations. Excuse me. And digital twins cut across all three of those big areas, and at the very base level, they provide the context around which all of that optimization across all three of those layers, if you will, are being done. And the simple concept of having a digital representation of your physical equipment and processes in your plant is common, needs to be common across all three of those activities.
Interesting. So I'd like to kind of linger on that a bit. So you mentioned an interesting term, industrial AI ops. Could you kind of like unpack that for us? What exactly that is?
Yeah, sure. So just like any of these sort of IT technologies, let's say there is a generic flavor of AI. You can get open source an algorithm to do to build a random forest or to build a neural network or technologies like that. But they aren't out of the box as an industrial algorithm, if you will. They need to be surrounded with industry specific. They need to be surrounded with digital twins, for example, to have the industrial context and to be able to be applied to an industrial use case. And one of the, if you want to really oversimplify it, one of the unique challenges of an industrial use case as it relates to AI compared to a sales or a marketing use case is that time series data and the volume of time series data makes it a unique case, that differentiates an industrial AI use case from a just a generic AI use case. I don't know if that answers the question, but that's a pretty critical distinction.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it puts everything in perspective, right? Yeah. So I mean, as you mentioned, like the digital twins cuts across like a wide range of functions, right? So of which industrial IoT is a big part of. So
Yeah.
what do you see as being the role of industrial IoT in enabling digital twins?
Yeah, I think it's very important, obviously. It's an important pillar on which the digital twin sits. And so if we want to sort of look at this broadly, when we want to build a very complete digital twin, we want to have the sensor data, and that sensor data can come from, let's say, legacy automation systems. Maybe the protocol is OPC or something like that. Maybe it's MQTT. Then we have new sensors that are sort of being added to the plants outside of the scope of traditional automation. So the smart sensors, the things that aren't wired in through a PLC or through a DCS system, those are becoming more and more important, pillar and there again, now we see more MQTT in that area and other sort of message-based protocols that are supported for smart devices in that area. And then the third area is more of a higher level system, not directly to sensors, but rather working with the on-premise data systems like manufacturing execution systems, quality systems, where the data isn't necessarily coming from a sensor, it's coming from a higher level system, but nevertheless are a really important component of building out a complete digital twin, is to have the context from really all three of those areas.
Oh, interesting. So, I mean, traditionally, the case is that data collection in industrial facilities is primarily like really focused on the process data, right? And now you've got, as you mentioned, sensors that are retrofitted to equipment to get all of this other data, which is more like kind of like asset data. So how do you place strategically the importance of data? Because I know you kind of like take an approach of creating a process twin and also like an asset twin, as it were. What is the approach there as far as those two types of data are concerned?
It's very use case driven. So if we're working with a customer that has an issue or an opportunity around quality, as an example, we're going to really look for what are all the available inputs in to solve that problem and to make sure that those are represented in the digital twin. And so that's going to be a combination of sensor data. That's going to be a combination of quality system data, and potentially other sources. Sometimes the quality data comes in through a smart sensor, such as like a near infrared device that's outside of the traditional controls or outside of the quality system. So it's use case driven in that way. If we choose like an asset use case, where maybe we're interested in current from a motor, but we're also interested in the vibration and the temperature, and there again, it's the use case is going to dictate really the data collection strategy, and as I think you probably know, certain sensors like vibration sensors, for example, are much more likely to come in through a smart device or an IoT sort of platform instead of coming through the traditional automation systems. So yeah, I guess the use case really dictates where that data is coming from, what the strategy is, and what's the scope of different systems you might need to connect to get a complete digital twin.
Awesome. So you mentioned also the fact that we have got you also rely on the connectivity interface that is exposed by legacy equipment. So and also as you move that data up to where it really needs to end up, it's a communication channel. What communication protocols or standards would you say maybe do you see the most out there, or maybe are well suited for a digital twin implementation?
Yeah, I mean, we still see when it comes to sort of like standard protocols, we still see the majority OPC out there, and MQTT is emerging. We're seeing companies standardize on MQTT as a strategy and kind of building out their industrial data pipeline, let's say. But the vast majority is OPC out there. From our perspective, maybe a little bit unique and not exactly what you're asking, but for what we do, historians are just as important, maybe if not more important, sort of protocol or interface point for us as a real-time data source is. And the reason is when we go to train AI models, we need 3, 6, 12 months of history. So the best use case for us is that when that data has already been collected, it's already been historized, and we can come in and start adding value on top of that history. And so those are more API based as opposed to standards based interfaces. So if we're talking about talking with an Aviva Pi system or Wonderware historian or a GE historian or an Aspen Tech IP21 historian, each one has a different API based protocol to be able to integrate that data. So yeah.
Yeah, and I would imagine each of those systems also would have like a different way of modeling the data, right? And which is really, I would imagine, also an important aspect of how you then kind of like build a digital twin, that data modeling aspect of
Yes.
it. So what are the best practices as far as modeling assets and processes for digital twins? Can you share around that?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it does tie in with the kind of the previous point, in the sense that different systems that you find out on the plant floor, whether it be a historian or a manufacturing execution system, or sometimes even a quality system. Historically, they each had their own sort of small part of the digital twin definition. So if we consider a historian case, like with the PI system and asset framework functionality that's part of the PI system, it's defining which tags belong with which assets as an example. And so that's one element of the definition of a digital twin. You might equate that or translate that to MQTT and Sparkplug, some organization or OPC UA as an organization of which tags belong with which assets. And so our aim is to, when we're connecting with multiple systems, is to really coalesce different, definitions of the digital twin into a common one. And I don't know if you would call this a best practice. It's more of a reality is that many customers, well, let's just say they didn't name their tags consistently. Maybe they didn't even apply asset framework consistently. And oftentimes when implementing digital twins, it's the first time to clean up all of the poorly defined organization of data and to approach it in a more thoughtful way, because oftentimes when we're implementing digital twins, it is in an enterprise context, not just a single process or even a single plant. And so it really is the first opportunity to establish basic things like standard naming conventions. And as long as you can map to the data that's maybe poorly named or named in a non-standard way, it all sort of comes out in the wash as it relates to the digital twins. And so again, it's very basic advice, in terms of modeling standards, is just organization and naming conventions. And the other part of advice, again, which is very, very basic around modeling digital twins, is we really, really try to drive the definition of digital twins to map to the physical reality. We want to create a virtual digital twin, but we want it to tie to something that is a physical asset or physical process, and has that connection. There is some, when people are implementing digital twins, maybe taking virtual too far and creating a definition of a digital twin that doesn't map to anything in the physical world. And there are sort of many issues that can come from that. So beyond naming, the other piece of advice is try to stick to creating digital twins that map to physical assets and physical processes.
Okay. So does that mean, I don't know if it's the right way to think about it, but does that mean less abstraction, less and less abstraction, or what's the healthy level of abstraction there?
Yeah, we're still abstracting, right, from the physical. In a way, even going back to the first sort of piece of advice around tag naming, one level of abstraction is I don't need to go in and rename all the tags that are in the source data system. I just need a way to link to those tags, and when I create that tag in the digital twin, I can create it with a standard, with a more standardized, more generic naming. So that is one level of abstraction. Around my second point about making sure you're mapping to reality, I'll give a specific example here. It's very common in a consumer products manufacturing line where you're in a packaging operation, for example, where you have a production line, which is maybe there's a filling operation, and then there's a conveyor that splits into two pathways, and you're making one product on one side of that pathway, and you're making a different product. Maybe it's a different package size or something. There is a tendency to try to model that virtually by creating a third pathway, if you will, that is a combination of those two. And we would say, don't do that, because now you have a digital twin that is this third thing that doesn't map to anything that's in the physical space. And, while it might be convenient for some calculations, or might be convenient for some specific reason, breaking that rule of having a digital twin that doesn't actually exist in reality, there's more downside than upside of that, just because it can confuse and not map to reality.
Interesting. So now, as you kind of like coalesce all this data from different source systems into that one common model, how much of an influence does international standards of data modeling play into that? Do you kind of like take the approach of building something that is more customized to an organization, or you like to follow the route of using an international standard or digital twins?
Yeah, so I would say standards are important to be to be able to work within the standards, but not be constrained within the standards. And the two standards that I would highlight are the ISA 88 and ISA 95 standards. They've been around for a very long time. There's nothing new in there that relates to IoT or AI, for that matter, any kind of higher level modeling. But the fact that those standards have been adopted at some level is very useful. But we don't want to be constrained by those standards, because those standards didn't contemplate digital twins, really. Those standards didn't contemplate AI and how that may impact these processes. And so, to sort of provide an example around the ISA 88 standard, which I see as being a standard that took hold probably more than 20 years ago, but has not evolved really at all in that time period. But so what we do with, for example, an ISA 88 batch system standard is we use it to automatically configure the digital twins. And what's more than that, given that standard is in place, we use it to automatically apply models on top of it. So we know if it's an S88 batch system, we know that we can automatically apply a standard yield model, a standard cycle time optimization model, a standard process control model on top of it. And by the fact that standard exists, means that the deployment time for an ISA batch system, all the way from collecting the data through to having a working AI model on top of it, in a digital twin in the middle, if you will, is a matter of minutes, literally, to configure all that. So, we're taking advantage of those standards, but at the same time, there isn't a new standard, let's say, that's specific to digital twins or specific to applying AI models or machine learning models that has really taken hold like an ISA 95 or an ISA 88 type standard.
Oh, I see. Okay. So now when it comes to building advanced analytics models, so there's the machine learning based approach, and then there's the first principles based approach. Now,
Yeah.
as far as digital twins for manufacturing is concerned, could you kind of like compare the two approaches and talk about when one should be used over the other, particularly for manufacturing?
Yeah, that's very great. That's a great question, and a very, very direct answer, I think, to it is um, where a relationship is known, let's say you where you know the formula that is going to calculate something, and that would be maybe the simplest definition of a first principle model. If you know, if you're trying to build a model around a steam boiler, the relationship of the energy to steam, using a steam table is an example of a first principle model, and it's a well-known relationship. That is where you apply a first principle model. It's so, some customers want to apply machine learning or AI to a known relationship, and we don't advise that because you're asking a machine learning model to learn something that's already known. So it's more of an academic exercise to maybe prove that the technology works more so than it actually solves a real problem. So where the relationships are known, apply first principle models. You apply the AI to where the relationships are not known, and to discover what those relationships are, and discover what the equation is, if you will, that might describe some process that is unknown. That's the best use of the AI machine learning models is in those cases. And like I said, some customers like to prove the technology of applying AI to a known system or a known relationship, just to kind of academically prove that it actually works. And that's interesting, but doesn't solve a business problem by doing that.
Oh yeah, makes a lot of sense. Now, I mean, you're in the space, right, of building, providing a platform for digital twins. So, do you perhaps have any examples or case studies that you could share where TwinThread or digital twins were applied successfully in manufacturing?
Yeah. So, TwinThread is first and foremost a digital twin platform, and comes with a set of tools where you can build your models and build first principle models as well as AI models on top of that. In addition to that, though, we offer 8 different out-of-the-box applications. These applications are fit for purpose to solve specific problems. So I'll give one example, a real-world example here of an application of our quality application. And just to make it clear, our quality application isn't meant to be a quality system. It's meant to sit on top of your automation systems and your quality system to be able to optimize quality. And a specific example in one of our customers that makes pet food, we applied our quality application to automatically make adjustments to the process in a near real-time basis to optimize 4 different quality parameters simultaneously. And so the way this is sort of wired up, if you will, is we're collecting data from a quality system. We're collecting data from, in this case, it's a Wonderware-based Historian and SCADA system, and we're taking in about 100 sensor values from across the line. The manufacturing process takes about an hour from its from the beginning to the end. So you have to deal with the issue of you're making quality sort of at the beginning of that process, but you don't get to measure the quality until an hour later. So you're having to deal with these, time lags, and it's a very dynamic process, so that you have to deal with everything that's happening in between, in terms of building out the model. And then those 100 sensors and data from the quality system come together into a digital twin model of the entire process. And out of that, there's about 7 or 8 what we call controllable properties, or controllable tags, if you want to call it that, where the models produce recommendations, and those recommendations are wired all the way down into the SCADA system to actually manipulate different parameters, such as dryer temperatures, or certain ingredient flows are being manipulated by the model in real time. So that's sort of a real world example of applying not only the digital twins, but the AI models in a continuous feedback mechanism. And this is something that company has rolled out across all of their lines, and have been very successful in applying that. And the real benefit is, I think it's, again, very, very basic, and is that historically the operator experience level has been, more than a decade, and over the last few years, the operator experience level, as they've hired new operators, has gone down, a lot. It's gone down by like 80%, the amount of operator experience. And by having the AI augment, the new operators, it brings a lot of sort of digitized experience into the mix, and they not only able to achieve higher quality, but do that with a lot less experience out on the plant floor. And it's been extremely successful.
Awesome. That sounds really great. So, digital twins really is a relatively new way of solving problems, right? Particularly in manufacturing. So for those companies who are looking to go down that path, what would you say are the key factors to consider when selecting a digital twin platform or vendor, and how to kind of like evaluate the capabilities and how that fits into their existing systems?
Yeah. So we're obviously very biased in this, in the answer to this. And our sales leader recently put out a white paper about, incomplete digital twin platforms, incomplete platforms. But as we see the market, and the choices are, you can start with a cloud vendor's building blocks, such as Azure or AWS, or to a lesser extent GCP, and you can build all this stuff from scratch. That's sort of choice number one. Choice number two is that you go with a vendor that supplies some piece of that digital twin picture. So you're not using the raw building blocks of an Azure, for example. You're using more like you're building from a modular house,
Yeah.
building the house from modules, and that's sort of another approach. And then the third approach, which we're in this category, is to work with a complete platform that supplies all of the components that are necessary in that full stack. So going back to the second approach, you can find platforms that do very good job of industrial data ops, but they don't do any of the AI or modeling. You can find some generic tools that do AI and modeling, but they aren't built for industrial applications. So you have to build that part of it yourself. So it really just depends on an organization's ability and desire to develop. I mean, this technology is moving extremely fast. So it's very much a moving target. And that may cause you to want to develop everything on your own. The fact that things are moving so quickly without sort of locking into a vendor, or it may put you on the other end of the extreme of like there's no possible way if you're going to build this stuff yourself that you can keep up. So maybe you want to lean more towards a vendor that has a complete platform. And I guess the last piece I would add is the complete platform concept doesn't just apply to let's say the IT components of the platform, meaning doing industrial data ops and doing the AI piece and doing the enterprise integration piece. Those are the big pieces, which you could find different vendors to do all different parts of that. It also has to do with addressing asset-based use cases versus process-based use cases, or handling both. There are many, many choices of vendor platforms that around asset performance or asset reliability is a very, very crowded space of vendors that have, maybe they're integrating all the way from a sensor all the way up to the AI, and have this very vertically integrated solution, but they're only doing that one thing. They're only doing that one use case. And so there's dozens of use cases to address in any given manufacturing company. And those companies really need to decide, am I going to buy 12 different, vertically integrated solutions to address my 12 different use cases? Or should I rather choose a platform that can handle a broad set of use cases, kind of across asset and asset reliability, as well as process and process optimization? And so from our perspective, it's very much, the latter case where, we're promoting the concept of a single complete platform that can address a broad set of use cases without having to build a lot, building blocks, stitch a bunch of different vendors together, and without having to do one thing for your assets and a different thing for your process optimization.
Awesome. So maybe let's kind of take this opportunity to talk specifically about TwinThread solution, right? Can you give us a description of what TwinThread is, like, for the benefit of those who are not really familiar with the platform, how it solves all the problems that we have kind of been highlighting all along?
Yeah, so TwinThread is first and foremost a digital twin platform where you build out comprehensive digital models of physical assets and processes, and just sort of emphasize assets and processes. It's not just assets or processes. We have a pretty unique, might call it development environment. It's really the environment that you use to build your digital twins, but also build the models and build the integration. A pretty unique tool there that's geared for the data scientists just as much as it's geared for the process engineer. It's geared for even operations professionals, to be able to, all of those different audiences, to be able to build without necessarily having to write a lot of code. I mean, you can write code in our platform if you want, but there's a lot of stuff that can be done in a no-code type environment. to build out those first principle models, to build out the AI-based models, and to build out your digital twins. And then on top of that, we offer 8 different applications. I won't list all 8 of them, just to sort of maybe give a little sense of what those are, and maybe a little about why we created the applications. So I'll start with the creation. I mean, we saw the need to have not just a developer tool to build systems with, but rather some pre-built applications, just simply to have the time to value, so that customers could implement solutions quickly that really help to fund enterprise level deployments. So no one's going to buy an enterprise level system without having proven the value. So the role of the applications is really to prove the value, and through that value proof, be able to justify and fund an enterprise deployment. And so a couple of the 8 applications, just to mention, one is quality. We already talked about that earlier in that autonomous quality or quality autopilot case that we talked about a little bit earlier. Another application is our batch optimization, and that gets into the S88 standard batch system optimization to do yield, process optimization, and quality optimization in batch operations. Another example is our asset reliability application. This would be used to, for example, take in vibration and other process measures across a wide variety of assets, and to be able to do anomaly detection and failure prediction on those assets. And so a pretty broad spectrum of applications that cover process optimization as well as asset reliability and optimization.
Awesome. Yeah, so to conclude this session, can you tell us more about TwinThread, the company, where you're based out of, and all that kind of information?
Yeah, so we're a remote company, but we have we're based in Bozeman, Montana. It's not it's not a small Silicon Valley here in Bozeman, Montana, but there are a few companies here, like Snowflake is based in Bozeman, Montana as well. And we have offices, sort of critical mass, if you will, in Charlottesville, Virginia, and also in Halifax, Nova Scotia. So we're spread out, but I would say mostly a remote team. We have an interesting combination of sort of data science, computer science, as well as chemical and process engineering. So our team is largely engineers, but spread across a lot of disciplines, from chemical and electrical engineering all the way through sort of data science and computer science. And we're really excited to have that sort of breadth of engineering talent. It enables us to provide a very unique level of support to our customers, to have that sort of both engineering and data science expertise in the company. We're a relatively small company, around 50 people, and got started in the late part of 2016. And today, I've been very fortunate to have a number of Fortune 100, Fortune 200 manufacturing companies that are part of our installed base. And in addition, we have partnerships with both Aviva and GE. They embed our platform as part of their cloud offer. So we're excited to have those partnerships as well, and to bring our technology out to their installed bases. Yeah, that's about us.
Awesome. So yeah, Erik, thank you again for taking the time to come out on the show and share your insights with the audience. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I really appreciate the invite.